Hello everybody, welcome to Thursday's video message. Just a quick update from me. I've been diagnosed with sciatica, in case people don't know. It's still extremely painful day by day, but it's lessening a tiny amount each day, and I'm taking some painkillers, and I've got some another physio appointment coming up, but it's still very uncomfortable and particularly difficult to get around and walk. In particular, if you could pray for me tomorrow, as well as praying for all of the family of Alan Dobson. Obviously, I'm doing both a funeral service at the crematorium in the morning and in the church, and just that my leg will hold up enough for me to be able to do that. That would be great. Thank you very much for all the prayers that have been going up, and some cards and just lots of care being shown, and lots of people asking how I'm doing, and I really appreciate that. It's such a blessing to be surrounded by people who are really caring. So let me just dig back into Mark 2, which Dave spoke about on Sunday morning, and also he talked a bit about further on Tuesday. So today I just want to look at the last part of Mark 2, which is entitled Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. It's verses 23 to 28. So I'll quickly read that. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the cornfields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some ears of corn. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat, and he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Just give you a little bit of background to this, and I'll do that through Mark 7. So there's a couple of verses. I just want to look at Mark 7 verses 5 to 8, a little further on in Mark. Hopefully I'm not stealing from either myself or whoever's preaching on that passage. But in Mark 7 verse 5, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law asked Jesus this question: "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" The tradition of the elders, if you like, it was a whole tradition of the Pharisees, or the kind of teachers of the law. They had these rules that they had created around kind of God's rules from the Bible, but that went into far more depth, and they were very much man-made laws. So they weren't kind of known as laws as such; they were known as traditions. They had something like at least 613 commandments, which they'd got from the Old Testament, but there was a whole another load of traditions set around those. And these traditions meant that people were accountable to man rather than to God, because it was more about the Pharisees' rules that they'd set, and the Pharisees oversaw those rules. They decided who was right and who was wrong, and of course it was always them who were right and everyone else who was wrong. And that, of course, led to judgmentalism, that they were trying to catch people out. Instead of encouraging people to live well, which is what the law is for, they were using it just to point the finger, catch people out, condemn people and judge people. And an example from Luke chapter 11 verses 45 to 46, one of the experts in the law says to Jesus, "Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us also." What had been going on was Jesus had been kind of bringing down the Pharisees and just explaining why what they were doing wasn't right. And so the experts in the law say, "Hang on a minute, Jesus, when you start having a go at the Pharisees, it sounds like you're having a go at us as well. And that's not fair. We don't really like that." That wasn't a good move, because Jesus then replied to them, "And you experts in the law, woe to you, because you load people down with burdens they can hardly carry, and you yourselves will not lift one finger to help them." There's that picture Jesus is giving, that they're setting a false standard of righteousness that is unreachable, and everybody's under judgment because they can't reach it. They're loading people down with burdens that they can't keep to, with standards they can't reach, and he says you're not helping them in any way. And these traditions, this way of being, was rejected by Jesus. Let me read again Mark 7 verse 5 and continue with the next couple of verses. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" He replied, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions." There's Jesus explaining what they're doing and rejecting what they're doing and saying they've let go of what God wanted and they're instead making people do what they want them to do. And so how does Jesus summarize a right and good response to the law? Well, we see that also further on in Mark chapter 12, verse 28 to 31. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbour as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." Jesus sums up these 613 laws and the many, many more set around them by saying, here's what you need to do: love God and love each other. In Matthew 22, when Matthew quotes Jesus saying this, he quotes him saying, "All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." In other words, all of this stuff that you're pointing and catching people out with, all of that hangs on two things: love God and love each other. And so as we think about the Sabbath from Mark chapter 2 and the rules that there was a number of different rules around the Sabbath, and it was all again all about catching people out. And in fact, what the Pharisees would do, there was a rule, for example, that you could only travel 3/4 of a mile on the Sabbath. And so they would make sure people didn't do that. But what they would do instead, what the Pharisees would do, is they'd walk for 3/4 of a mile and then stop and do something else and then walk for 3/4 of a mile again, saying, well, I've only travelled 3/4 of a mile and then I've stopped and now I'm travelling 3/4 of a mile, so I've not broken the rules. In other words, they tried to keep the letter of the law, but not the whole point of it, the heart of it. And Jesus sums it up in verse 27, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." It's a great word to us today, that call that there is on us to take time out from our busyness, to have a step away from all that's going on around us, whatever that looks like for you. That is given by God for our benefit. It's not something for someone to point the finger at, for someone to say to you, "Oh, why aren't you doing this?" It's a gift from God to us to make that choice, to say, I'm going to take time apart from all the busyness, from all the other distractions, from all the weights of responsibility, from all the things I've got to do yesterday, today, tomorrow. I'm going to take time to sit with Jesus, to know him. And that's the second thing Jesus says, verse 28, "The Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." The Sabbath is all about Jesus. It's about getting with him and resting with him and enjoying his presence and his blessings and his word and his strengthening power in us. It's a gift for us by God. And it's all summed up, I guess, by Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 to 17. Paul writes, "Therefore, do not let anyone judge you by what you eat or drink, or with regard to a religious festival, a new moon celebration, or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ." So when we think about taking some time, when we think about having a Sabbath, what we're talking about is found in Jesus. It's being with him, setting time aside to be in his presence, to let go of other things, to put them down for a moment, even to hand them over to him, but to rest in his presence. When are you doing that at the moment? What time have you set aside today, this week, to spend time with Jesus, to enjoy his presence, to take on the gift God's given us of a Sabbath, of a time in the presence of Jesus, being strengthened by him. Hope you find that helpful, and hope you're able to find some time in these coming days to be able to sit with Jesus. Speak to you soon.